Heyo everybody, Haku here with a One Piece discussion video on why Carrot's gonna be back sooner than you think. Or Carrot's probably just gonna be back pretty soon in general. I'm gonna talk about this both from like a plot perspective, but also from like a meta perspective when it comes to the series. I'm still not gonna go back to doing One Piece videos every single week or anything, but I really wanted to talk about this topic. It's interesting to me. So the thing with Carrot is that her story in Wano was never concluded. The thing is, a conclusion would have been like, say, Carrot accepting ruling Zoe, or getting any sort of goodbye whatsoever, or saying, I'm not going to rule Zoe, but instead I'll go start a new Nox Pirates or something. I think a lot of those would have been disappointing conclusions in a lot of ways compared to how much screen time the character's been given. They would have been disappointing conclusions, but they would have been conclusions. They would have been a way to finish off the character's arc right now, and we'll come back to it later. And like every other character had that, which is why it's one of those things I have seen a lot of people say, okay, Oda just forgot about Carrot, or Oda had a lot of bad writing in Wano, or all of these sort of ways to try to reason it out. But to me, the thing with that is that there were some, like, I reread through Onigashima and the last act of Wano before making this video, just to, like, refresh myself on everything. And there are definitely some parts of Wano that, you know, I have grievances with, and it's fair if everybody else has grievances on, but nothing is as, like, just completely poorly written as the way Carrot was handled in the end. There was, again, just no ending given, and the last scene that we left on was not only a cliffhanger, but just didn't make any sense plot-wise. And I think that's on purpose, because unless Oda's just the worst writer ever, and we have all the rest of One Piece to say, you know, he's not, unless he's just awful, then it has to be leading somewhere. Like every other character had a conclusion, a character arc that made sense, and even if they're coming back, because I think we're seeing Yamato again, I think we're seeing Kaido and Big Mom again, they had things that sort of concluded their story for now until we come back to them. Like, I think Momonosuke is a very good example. Even, like, small minor characters, we even got closure on what happens to Tama, and I think that I'm going to talk about some other characters other than Carrot just really quickly to sort of give examples of how these characters all sort of had an ending for now when it comes to Wano. So, like, even Tama and Speed. So Tama's thing was Tama wanted to set out with Ace because of how terrible Wano was, and Ace was like, yeah, when you become a what was it, an alluring kunoichi or something like that. And then when Tama shows up, and like from that, it's like people could say, oh, is Tama going to end up leaving with the Straw Hats? But when Tama shows up to like help Usopp and Nami on Onigashima, Tama's dream has changed. Tama says, I want to live in a Wano where Momonosuke's the shogun and we can eat anything we want. And that's what Tama kind of gets in the end. Tama still is like, I'll set to sea one day, I'll still become a kunoichi. But the dream changed, and Tama got that in the end. Tama gets to train under Shinobu. Tama gets to live in a Wano where Momo is shogun and she can eat whatever she wants. The character arc there has been fulfilled. And even like Speed, where it's like a very extremely minor character, where it's like there were the questions up in the air. It's like, are these people just going to basically be Tama's mind-controlled slaves? But Tama's like, no, it wears off eventually, and somewhere along the way people can choose whether they want to still be my friend or not anyway. And Speed's like, I'm going to stay with you forever, and they kind of just bond, and we get a conclusion there. All the scabbards get to protect Momonosuke and stay there, which kind of ends their character arcs. With Kinemon, his character arc was about seeing Momonosuke like as this sort of surrogate father after Odin's death, and once they got sent to the future, he wanted to see Momo grow up and be shogun of Wano. And while I'm like, the Kinemon death would have been tragic and would have been well written, he gets to live to again be by Momonosuke's side, see him grow up and become shogun of Wano. Momonosuke's is the like best example of like, I wanted to like Yamato so badly, but Yamato just wasn't really well written. Or on the opposite side of things, Momonosuke annoys me. I find Momonosuke to be annoying, but damn, Momonosuke's well written. Momonosuke, from the very beginning, every single major plot point with him, again and again, was about two central things: overcoming his fears and becoming a lead. Sorry, I almost dropped my notes. Overcoming his fears and becoming a sort of leader that can become Shogun of Wano. Everything was about that. In Zou, it was about him being able to tell Luffy to ask Luffy himself to help him take down Kaido. Then we see again in the prison mine, he has to step up and tell these people who he is and tell them that, like, the flames of rebellion aren't dead or whatever. And then when he's getting kidnapped by Kanjuro, he has to tell everyone, don't worry about what happens to me, keep going with the raid. When he's going to be killed by Kaido, he has to stand up and say his name in front of everyone. Time and time again, it's about overcoming his fears, and it's about becoming Shogun of Wano. And then, in the end, he gets to become Shogun of Wano. It's what it was always leading towards. It was really, really well written. Now with Yamato, Yamato's character is kind of all over the place, to be honest, but I actually think the ending for right now for Yamato makes absolute sense. And I have another One Piece video that I'm doing right after this one, where I'm going to talk more about Yamato, because I'm going to talk about, like, what I think about people coming back to join the Straw Hats later on. But the thing with Yamato, Yamato started off being like, hey, I'm going to go to sea with you because I knew Ace, which is like just a shred of a connection to Luffy, and it's like, why should Luffy or anybody care about this person? Even after the fight, like, I'm going to sea with you guys, and it's like, Yamato is the person who just invites themselves to the party, like you're going out with friends and the one person overhears you and invites themselves. Really rude. Goes to Momonosuke, hey, your dead father who you have trauma over dying and it's not been as long for you as for everyone else. Yeah, I'm that father. And Yamato starts off with advanced conquerors and a mythical devil fruit. And the guardian deity of Wano thing ended up being important because a big thing with Yamato's character was, I want to be Odin, I want to be Odin. But the thing that after reading Odin's journal you find out is that Wano needed Odin, and Odin said, you know what, I need to finish my adventure. And I'm not saying it was a mistake necessarily, but when Wano needed him, Odin wasn't there. And I think that Yamato carries on Odin's will, same as Momonosuke, in that Yamato sees that Wano is in need and decides, I want to go adventure. And I think this is what's really, really important. I want to go adventure like Odin did, but I'm going to do what Odin didn't do, what he should have done, what he couldn't do, and I'm going to protect Wano for now, and then I'll go set out to sail later. And I think giving up what Yamato wants in order to do what's right for Wano and everybody else, because the reason why Yamato says they want to be like Odin is because the people of Wano loved Odin, and I feel like doing this is going to get the people of Wano to love Yamato. So I think that staying behind, at least for now, absolutely makes sense. And again, in the next video, I'll talk about what I think that means for the future and why Yamato was even introduced in the first place. But I just wanted to bring up how all of these characters have character arcs and conclusions. But then, what was Carrot's story about? Carrot wanted to go out and adventure. Carrot wanted to see the world and everything, but is told by Parasparrow, hey, go back to Zou, go back to your forest and munch some grass. And then we have the Minx also telling her, hey, go back to Zou, give up on what you want to do, and you carry the will of Pedro more than anyone. Pedro's will had absolutely nothing to do with ruling Zou. It had to do with finding all the poneglyphs and helping Roger, which he couldn't do, so he was going to help the next generation, help the Straw Hats. And even his last words, keep moving forward, you have to keep the Straw Hats alive. I just feel like it doesn't make any sense for Carrot to have been dropped right here with no goodbye or anything. And like this entire character arc doesn't make sense. And you can argue that, oh, well, these other character arcs had things that were misfires, but none of them were this extreme. None of them were this bad. Which is why it's like, unless you're believing that Oda's just terrible and for this one specific character has written the character terribly, then, you know, That's not the way things are going to work out in the end. So yeah, Pedro's will had nothing to do with that. We had all this time where, like, in the end of Whole Cake, Carrot was essentially just a part of the crew, was treated pretty evenly with the rest of the Straw Hats, did all of this lookout stuff. Lookout's technically a barrelman. We have the barrel Carrot rabbit screw or propeller thing in the most recent chapter that's like kind of trolling, kind of also maybe hinting at things. Also, I've seen people say, like, bringing the Dawn was taking down Kaido and freeing Wano and stuff, but no, it wasn't, because Pedro literally says, we've been waiting for centuries. Do you not know how long a century is? It's not 20 years. The Kaido thing has been 20 years in the making. And we also see during the flashbacks that the Kozuki symbol was there predating Odin. So we still have more stuff to learn about Zunisha and Joy Boy and the Kozuki symbol that was there and the moon. All of that kind of stuff is related. So again, I just think it's one of those things where people are like, Carrot's going to come back with everybody else at the end and just be part of the final war. But I think we still have a lot more to learn before then. And that's why we didn't get a sort of conclusion for the character yet, because there's still more to come relatively soon. Also, we're at Egghead now. People have theorized, is Limburg the mink that's with the revolutionaries? Are they connected to Mads or anything? We have revolutionary stuff going on right now. I wouldn't be surprised if Egghead had stuff to do with the moon because of all the science and futuristic stuff. So yeah, there's all of that stuff. Also, with going to Egghead, the Straw Hats have just presumably been captured. Presumably been captured by Vegapunk. And if so, remember Chopper being captured in the beginning of Whole Cake, and then Carrot comes in for the save. Is this just that going on again? But yeah, there's more we need to know. And I think even if Carrot doesn't show up immediately, which I feel like Carrot should, because again, we left the character on a cliffhanger. We didn't get any sort of closure, any sort of finishing of the plot points, at least for now, at least for Wano. So I really feel like that Carrot really needs to show up within the next few chapters, probably. Maybe a dozen or so at the latest. Sometime this arc, it just feels weird to have concluded every other character's arc for now, and then to have not concluded Carrot's for now if we were going to drop her. So it doesn't make any sense to drop her character. But even if we did, I definitely think by the time we get to Elbaf, Carrot is going to be involved again. Because again, why was the Elbaf lore drop given specifically to Nami and Carrot? Carrot comments on the giants and everything. And also, I'm 1,000% sure that the Big Mom crew is going to be involved again once we get to Elbaf, because Big Mom's entire plotline from all the way back in Punk Hazard has all been about giants and Elbaf, trying to create giants. Her will to try to get back in Elbaf's good graces after everything that went wrong, trying to marry Lola off, which is something that was hinted at even pre-time skip. All of that's been revolving around Elbaf. Plus, Luffy said he was going to, kick her ass all over the New World, and we haven't seen Luffy defeat her yet. I'm not saying he's going to have a crazy, long, difficult fight like he did against Kaido, but she is one of the great pirates of the last generation that Luffy hasn't beaten yet. So I definitely do think we still need to see that. Why introduce, usually when we get these crews introduced for the sort of villain characters, we actually see fights against them or actually see them do something. But we've been introduced to a bunch of the Big Mom pirates, like Smoothie, for example, who just haven't done anything yet, basically. Plus, they had to sit out of Wano, and I think it's because they're going to be important again by the time we get to Elbaf. That's all been connected there. And again, we had the will of Perospero. Was Carrot just supposed to go back to Zoe? I think Carrot beating Perospero would have been too early. A lot of people have said that. Perospero's defeat was mirrored with Jax, who was one of the Yonko commanders. Plus, Perospero was one of... other than Katakuri, was the most impressive member of the Big Mom Pirates. So I feel like if Carrot in Wano did take down Perospero, that's bigger feats than Jinbei, and I feel like maybe it's too early. It's a situation where where when we had Jinbei at Fishman Island, it's like he can't join yet because we're about to go against another warlord, Doflamingo. So then it's like, where's the tension? It's like, okay, you're a warlord, Doflamingo. We have a warlord on the crew. So it was a bit too early to have Jinbei like officially join, so he had to wait a while. So it's one of those things where I don't think Carrot could have beaten Parasparrow unless, like, if we're having Jinbei's bounty above Sanji's, and then we're having Carrot with greater feats than Jinbei, it's like, okay, are you bumping Sanji all the way down to 4th? I think it was too early for it. But by the time we get to Elbaf, that's plenty of time for Carrot to have grown as a character, for Carrot to have gotten stronger. Again, whether she joins the Straw Hats or not, it doesn't, like, she doesn't need to join the Straw Hats. I think there's a ton pointing to it with the whole lookout thing. But I also think that, yeah, I feel like by the time we get to Elbaf, Carrot beating Parasparrow would make more sense then. Because she couldn't beat him, even with Sulong and even with everything else during Onigashima, the raid there. So I think that it would make more sense for, by the time we get to Elbaf, which I think is going to be another full arc or two off, because I feel like we're getting Egghead now, we're likely going to end up with, Hachinosu because of the Kobe connection after this, and then Elbaf, I guess. So by the time we get there, whether Carrot shows up in the next few chapters or whether we don't see her again until Elbaf and she just gets a cover story or something, which I think would be very disappointing after again leaving the character on a cliffhanger and making me be like, damn, why are the Straw Hats such jerks? They didn't say goodbye to this character who's been with them arguably longer than anybody, except like Momonosuke and Kinemon, maybe Vivi. So it's just one of those sorts of situations where it's incredibly weird plot-wise to have left the character off like this. But talking about it in a meta sense as well, it's also a very odd choice to have not given the character a goodbye whatsoever. Because a bunch of people are like, it was clearly a minor character. And I'm like, you clearly are in the 95% of One Piece fans who cannot read. There are pictures to help you, you're still illiterate. Because here's the thing, you say that Carrot wasn't very important, but you're just wrong. You're just incorrect in that Carrot has had more sort of appearances and panels and chapters and everything than, like, she's in the top 24 within the entire series from, like, any metric you can look at, which is more than the vast majority of characters. So why give all of these actual minor characters goodbyes, but not this character who's been around more than almost any? And to, like, bring up, again, the sort of meta aspect of things, when it comes to the popularity poll, Carrot was 8th. Your 8th most popular character. You're not going to give any goodbye whatsoever. And in Japan, it wasn't as high, but it was still 24th within the top 24 within the entire series. That's very, very high. That's higher than 3 of the Straw Hats in popularity. So it's a situation where, yeah, why would you just not give a goodbye to the character? But that's just fan perception. That is just fan perception. That's not Oda. That's not Shueisha. So getting into Shueisha, when it comes to the log collection covers, the covers of the sort of combined DVD sets, Carrot is 4th. Technically speaking, there are only 11 characters who have been on more than one log collection cover. And of those 11 characters that have been on more than one, Luffy's been on 6 of them. He's the main character. Sanji and Law have been on 4 of them. Impressive for Sanji, I guess. So yeah, Sanji and Law have been on 4 covers. And then there are 8 characters that have been on 2 covers, including Carrot. It's like Zoro, Chopper, Carrot, Kid. Characters like that. Like other Straw Hats, Carrot, Kid. So again, That again, though, is like DVD releases. Oda doesn't decide that. Does he decide who's on the volume covers, though? I don't know. In terms of volume covers, she's 22nd. So again, only like the Straw Hats and maybe a dozen other characters have been on more volume covers. Plus, again, like I said, she's had an entire like volume cover, like sort of based around her with the Lion titled one. I think it was volume 88 maybe. Don't remember off the top of my head. When it comes to chapter appearances, how many chapters has this character appeared in? Carrot's 15th. There are only 14 other characters who have been in more chapters. And the same goes when we get to like panel appearances. What characters have been in the most panels? Carrot's 23rd. So again, it's one of those things where you say, the character isn't that important, but despite Carrot only showing up in chapter like 804, 805, somewhere around there, showing up over 800 chapters into the series, she's within the top 24 characters in terms of time on panel or in chapters. In volume covers, one of the most popular characters. So like from a plot sense, it doesn't make sense that we just left Carrot on a cliffhanger for no reason. But also from a meta sense, it makes absolutely no sense that Oda would just say, screw the character, we're just dropping the character. So I think most likely Carrot's going to show up very, very soon. I would hope so, because again, it'd be just poorly written if she didn't, because we didn't get an ending to the character, and the sort of, if you consider being like forced into the position of going back to Zoe, even if you consider that an ending, that's a horrible ending. That doesn't make any sense plot-wise. So that's kind of off as well. So I think that she's going to show up very, very soon. I think if we were stepping away from Carrot for a while, that we would have had an ending, like just to say, Carrot's on the shelf for now, we'll come back to the character later, like we did with Kaido and Big Mom, like we did with Yamato. We're just going to shelf the character for now, come back later probably. So we would have had an ending if that was the case, I would think. But even if Carrot doesn't show up soon, I think there's so many connections to Elbaf that by the time we get there, like I said, even if Carrot ends up in some sort of cover arc, we'll definitely meet back up by the time we get to Elbaf. Either way, I do think it's going to be before we get to the end game war that everybody's assuming will happen. And that's sort of the thing where I don't think Carrot necessarily needs to join the Straw Hats. I think if we get any more of them, she's probably the most logical choice at the moment. Just because basically everything's already there. Oda just needs to write like it happening, like all the sort of ingredients are already there. But the actual ending for Carrot's character could go so many different ways. Like I said, starting a new Nox Pirates, deciding that she, of her own volition, needs to take over as ruler of Zoe in order to guard the last road poneglyph or something. But again, like I was saying before, I feel like if that was the conclusion that we were getting, we would have seen that at the end of Wano. If she was going off to start a new Nox Pirates, it would have made sense for us to show her telling Luffy, I'm not going to sea with you, I need to do that. Or if she was going back to Zoe, it would make sense if we got a goodbye, like, again, even if it's like one panel long, like the Bellamy goodbye, where she's like, you know what, I need to go beyond Zoe. So the fact that we got no goodbye whatsoever is the main fuel for me that's like, oh, so she's got to be coming back fairly soon then. Because if not, this is a colossal failure in writing, bigger than anything else that you could complain about in Wano, bigger than anything in One Piece before now, and I find it really, really weird that Oda would flop in the writing this hard on this one specific thing for, again, a character that's been this popular and this prevalent in the series in terms of how much time she's taken up. But yeah, I guess that's it. This video went a lot longer than I thought. I was originally going to like script it and throw a bunch of images up while I was talking, and it'd probably end up shorter that way. But honestly, I'm just kind of crunched for time because I really want to get this video out before the spoilers for the next chapter come out. Because if the spoilers for the next chapter come out and Carrot's in it, then it's like, I'm happy. I'm happy that Carrot's in the next chapter. But my entire sort of discussion I wanted to have is pointless. So yeah, thank you so very much for watching. Like if you did like the video, comment down there to talk about this subject, talk about whatever. Follow on Twitter if you want. If you want a link to the Discord server, it's free and open for anyone. Just ask and I can give you a link to it. If you want to help support the channel on Patreon. It's patreon.com/Haku of the Tubes, or a link will be in the description. Or if you want to join memberships, that would be very much appreciated as well. I want to give a huge thank you to people who are already members and patrons. The chosen regulars at T0 and Evan Hawley, Cherryton Student, Celso the Storyteller, and David Langstaff, and Slayer Candidate SG. Yeah, thank all of you, and thank you so much for watching once again, and I'll see you all next time.